be so kind, staring out into space, asking God to hear my case, trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? The purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. This is Lori LeBay, and I'm your host and founder of Alzheimer's Speaks. Before we get started with our fascinating conversation this afternoon with Loretta, I am going to just tell you a little bit about Alzheimer's Speaks because we're always getting new listeners. So basically, who we are is we're an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. And we believe that the only way that we can really have an impact is to join forces and share knowledge and have everyday conversations about life with dementia like we're going to today. We have seen how much fun it is to help people remove the stigmas and the myths of memory loss and help people continue to live with purpose. At our core, Alzheimer's Speaks believes collaboratively is really the only way we're going to win this battle against dementia. And I know it's working because of all of your clicks and shares and likes of our resources. When you share with your Twitter tribe, your Facebook friends, your Pinterest peeps, your LinkedIn colleagues, anything from our blog to the radio show to our Dementia Chats webinars or our video interviews on conscious caring resources or even a page off our website, you are pushing information out to people who might not be ready to talk about this disease yet. And the more information we have available to people, the easier it's going to be for them to reach out and grab it. So I really hope that you continue to push our information out, because that's why we started, is just to raise everyone's voice and give them more resources and more tools to deal with this disease. And because of all your likes and clicks and shares, we were recognized as the #1 online influencer according to ShareCare and Dr. Oz. And again, that would not have happened without all of you. So thank you for taking those few moments to make a big, big impact there. As you're listening today, you might be thinking, hey, I got a story to tell too. Well, then reach out to me. Just go to alzheimersspeaks.com. That's kind of our mothership. And there's a big contact button there. And go ahead and shoot me an email and tell me your story, because we interview people that are living with dementia and have been diagnosed. We talk to families and friends and advocates, researchers, authors, movie producers, anything and anybody who's got a service, product, tool, or story to tell. We want to hear it because, everybody needs different things at different times. So we would absolutely love to talk with you. Today, we are lucky enough to have Loretta Woodward Veney with us, and she is the author of a book called Being My Mom's Mom. And I think that there's a lot of listeners out there that are going to be able to relate to this book. She wrote the book to become really an advocate for her mom and to help reduce the stigma associated with the disease and to help fight and find a cure. So welcome, Loretta. So happy to have you with us today.
Well, thank you so much, Lori. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, it's I can't wait to hear your story because as you probably know, I am a daughter of a mother who had dementia for 30 years. So I think we're going to have a lot of things in common, and so that's always fun, for me personally. But I just love hearing other people's stories because I think stories are so powerful. And they allow people to be able to relate on an everyday, realistic fashion of how life changes, and the grief, the sadness, the joys, and the things that we've championed, they're all part of life, and it's just fun to hear. So why don't you tell us first, why did you choose the title you chose, Being My Mom's Mom?
Yeah, that's such a great part of our story. I mean, dementia, as you know, really changes individuals, and sometimes, very subtly, but then other times, kind of a stark difference. And I don't think my mom had ever been to a McDonald's prior to her diagnosis. I'm not kidding. And so it's all of a sudden become her favorite restaurant, not just to get something to eat, but sort of to hang out too, because we'll go and we'll have something small and then seemingly sit there for hours. But one of the times we were in the line at McDonald's, and when it was our turn, she asked the cashier, she said, I want an apple pie. And the cashier looks at me, kind of to see, I guess, if it's okay, because that's all she ordered. And I said, you can have an apple pie, but you have to get something else, for lunch first. And the cashier burst out laughing, and my mother looked at the cashier and said, I used to be her mom, and now she's mine. And so that's the title. And I used to always joke with her. I said, one day I'm going to write a book about you. And she said, who would want to read a book about me? But as it turned out, quite a few people. So that's how the title came about, because she was very aware that we absolutely were switching roles. So that conversation was just priceless.
Oh, I love that story. I know some people say, you shouldn't be somebody's mom or somebody's dad, but roles do switch, and everybody's aware of it. And it's not, you're not doing it in a derogatory sense. It's just totally out of love and unconditional love, that we switch these roles. And
absolutely.
And it's a beautiful thing, when that happens. I love that your mom was totally aware of that, and I can just see my mom saying something like that too. She used to introduce me as, and this is my mother, and she takes such good care of me. And,
that's awesome.
And that just melted my heart. It frustrated my brothers, when she would say something like that. But to me, it just melted my heart, because it wasn't about having to be who I always was in her eyes or to get the words right. But the meaning of being somebody's mom, that's a huge responsibility. And
really, and scary. Very scary sometimes.
Yeah, because it's a whole new journey. Can you tell us what has changed with your mom since the book was published in 2013? Because, and then we'll talk a little bit about the book itself.
Sure, absolutely. I think some of the greatest changes are also the most heartbreaking. One of the things that I say about the book is that it's, heartbreaking and hopeful. So one of the heartbreaking things, of course, is the first time that your parent doesn't remember who you are. And so for us, it was January of 2014, so a couple of years ago, on my 55th birthday. And my mom lives in a very small group home with like 4 other residents, and everyone has dementia of some sort except one gentleman. And they do everything together as a group. They all sit around, they have all the meals together. And so whenever it's someone's birthday, of course, they have cake and ice cream. So my daughter, who's a fabulous baker, had made this great cake for my birthday. And so, took it over to the group home. So, after dinner, we're going to have the cake and ice cream. And right away, I could see my mom was kind of out of sorts. She said, oh, hi, like she always did with, I came in. Clearly, she recognizes my face, but I kind of got a sense that she wasn't really sure who I was. So one of the residents played the harmonica. He could play Happy Birthday on the harmonica. So he's playing Happy Birthday, and everybody's singing and clapping. And then all of a sudden, my mom got really upset. Whose birthday is it? What's happening? I don't know what's happening. She got really, aggravated and ended up, knocking her piece of cake on the floor, which is very unusual. My mother lives for desserts. So it was just so, and she started to cry. It was, oh, my God, one of the worst days of my life. So the guy stopped playing the harmonica, and, people weren't really sure what to do. But it was so sad. So I just put my arms around her, and I said, it's okay. It's okay. And so she says, I just don't understand. And I said, well, that's okay. We can have cake another day. And she said, okay. So she just started eating her dinner, which she had pushed to the side. And we just kind of moved on. So I quickly gathered up the stuff and left. And, of course, got to my car and cried and cried and cried. It really was one of the worst days. I hadn't ever seen my mom that frustrated. So it was, probably one of the, the days you'll never forget, for sure.
Yeah, and it's something so simple, you just think, how can that rattle their cage so deep? But, it does.
Right.
And, when they're rattled, we're rattled. And
right, and birthdays was such a huge thing in, our lives. And, she raised us pretty much as a single parent. But, no matter how money was tight or whatever the circumstances were, there was a birthday celebration and, always, a present. And just, she really went out of her way to do that. So that was striking for me, that birthdays were probably one of the first things that she forgot. So other people, I try to stop other people sometimes from saying, well, you know who that is, because clearly she doesn't, and it's okay that she doesn't. So in the beginning, like maybe the end of 2014, the beginning of 2015, she just started to call me other relatives' names. And I just made it a point to be whoever that was that day. And some of the relatives I didn't know. So I had to ask the keeper of all information in our family, Aunt Franny, who then died like that next year. But before that, she could always tell me who the relative was I was supposed to be that day. And that was, great history to know. So I just started to, respond to those names. So now, for the last, let's say, 6-8 months, my name is, all one word, very nice person. Because if someone, we're out in public and somebody says, oh, who's this very good lady with you? Oh, well, she's a very nice person. And so all one word is like the coolest thing. And I'm okay with that. People say, oh, that must be so crushing. Well, I'm, I guess, used to it now. But also, it could be worse. I have so many friends whose, the behavior in their parent or, their sibling or, changes so dramatically and sometimes becomes, really different from how they were. Some of them become really mean, and so some of them get called very bad names by their parent, cursing and fussing or whatever. And so I'm happy that she's chosen a good title for me. So if that's what we have, I try to, go with that. So I just smile, when she says that, and her eyes just light up. So that's her new name for me, and it's okay.
Oh, that's good. I think that's one of the toughest things for families is when the name changes or when the name just slips away and they don't know and they think their relationship is over. And we're so much more than a name. We're so much more than a name. And
that's correct.
Most of our
it's the best, it's really the best thing because the one thing we do have, everybody, when I give, presentations, I always talk about I have one connection left with my mother. Mm-hmm. And that is the, playing around with little Lego bricks. And I think I'm a certified Lego instructor. Everybody thinks that's funny. And so, are you kidding? Like, no, what a cool job. It's just one of the things I do. But I really, pursued it and got this little certification in one of the things I love to do, primarily because it is the only connection I still have with my mom. So, you know how they have that blank stare. Mm-hmm. And when you get the Legos out, I mean, her eyes light up and she reaches for them and she likes the little ones. I know a lot of senior centers use the bigger Lego bricks called Duplos. My mom doesn't like those. She remembers the little ones and she just starts clicking things together. And then she'll say, I'm building a house so I can go home. I was like, okay. That's her favorite thing. And then I put a little Lego person in, because, I have this set that has doors and windows because she likes building a house so much. Okay, go for it. And so she always opens the door and looks to see if the person is still in there. She says, I'm still in there. Uh-huh. It's the best thing ever. And so those, you can tell she is still in there. And so the name, I'd much rather have, those times when, she's really alert and, making things. And so the name just kind of goes out the window because we still have that. Yeah. And that's important. And so I think the other thing is, she's starting to say a lot less words, which is also, obviously very, not concerning so much, but, you see her slowly disappearing. But on the plus side, so because she's saying fewer words, her greatest relationship right now is with my almost 5-year-old. She'll be 5 years old in like 8 weeks, and with my granddaughter. And they have this really cool bond. And I love hearing every people's stories about that, the dementia patient and then some very young child who has this, just really important relationship with them. And that's, where my mother is now. So she's her favorite person at the moment. So that's actually really cool. And they play together and do all this stuff. And so that's great.
One of the things I saw with my mom, and it sounds like, and I don't know if this is new for you, but for my mom, I didn't see her play as much, as an adult. And when she got this disease, she was playful, but there's a difference, when she's just so into it and so concentrated and so authentic. And then it allowed me to play and not take things so seriously. Did you go through that, or were you guys always really playful per se?
No, I think I always was. I never really outgrew the Lego thing. And some of the things I teach, I do a lot of management and leadership, and some of the things that I have to do and how I have to train other people, things to do. Some of those things can be really boring. So I've always tried to bring play into, what I do. That's how I ended up doing this. And the thing I'm certified in is something called Lego Serious Play, for all you serious people out there. So it's kind of funny. So my mom, she, I guess, just played with me when we were younger, just because, that's what you did. But growing, as she got to be an adult, we never did, things like that. She wasn't even much on, I'm a big Scrabble player and things like that. And so we didn't do that as much. So this is definitely new for her, going and, doing the playing and the coloring. And these are some really special times for us being able to do that.
Yeah, because, my mom was really playful when I was younger, but then I think, you just get more serious and then you just kind of do the adult things. And to me, this part of the disease was such a gift to be able to see her kind of childlike was really very fun, because it was so authentic and so innocent and so joyful. And
we have to, I think, really focus on the joy. One of the coolest things we started doing in 2014 was we had a Easter egg hunt for, my granddaughter. And, of course, I wanted to bring my mom. And so my mother, fussed all the way in the car. I don't know what Easter is. I don't want to do eggs. What's an egg? And, she just went, I want to go back to my place. And I almost turned around and took her back, but I didn't. And when we got here to the, yard and all the eggs, my daughter had put all the eggs out. And so my granddaughter says, oh, I see one. So she runs with her basket, and she picks up the egg. And then my mother sees one. So my mother has her little basket, too. So she runs in the other direction. Then they just start running all over the yard. And my mother can really run. But 86. At the time, she'll be 88 in February. So they are running, at a breakneck speed through the yard, getting all the stuff. But what was so cool was at the end, my granddaughter wanted to make sure that she and my mom had an equal amount of eggs. And so they were, she was sharing. So cool. It was awesome.
Oh, that is very neat.
We've done it every year since then. Got some amazing pictures of the two of them together, searching and laughing, and just amazing. Absolutely amazing. And usually my daughter and I cry all through the whole thing because it's the coolest thing. They hold hands sometimes. And then it was really cold for Easter this year, so we had to do it inside. And my daughter had put some up, even on some of the beds and like the desk. And so my granddaughter would get up there, and then, my mother said, do you see it? And then she would get one. It was just so funny, just watching them, crawl around and do things. So, yeah, it's there are some, if you want to call it, blessings to it, because I think you see aspects of them, as you say, that you hadn't seen in years. Mm-hmm. And so I just try to take the beauty with it, with the rest of it.
Okay, well, that's great. Now, I know that you're involved with Us Against Alzheimer's. Can you tell people a little bit about that and how you got involved and what you're up to with them?
Sure. I got involved in 2013, probably right before the book came out. And, it got my attention. I met someone at a support group I had gone to, and they were talking about this advocacy group, and I hadn't really done a lot, sorry to say. I've done a lot of advocacy much in the past. My sister died of MS, so I had done a lot of fundraising and the MS marathons. I had done 8 of those, but I hadn't, gone beyond that to really lobby and do other things for, to raise funds and those kinds of things. So when the person mentioned it, Us Against Alzheimer's, all one word. Okay, great. So I go home and I look into it. And the first two things that got my attention was, kind of their mission is part of, is an engaged and enraged group of people. I'm like, hey, now that's right up my alley. And so because this disease is so frustrating. So I, got on and clicked around, and just all the resources that were available, and just all the advocacy, all the information about potential drug trials and things really was fascinating and encouraging for me. So I also you can link from that there is a Us Against Alzheimer's Facebook community. So I became really active in that. And then right around, just a few months after that, they asked me to become one of the moderators of the group. And so the goal of the moderators is really to, just participate in the discussions, particularly when people are asking for help. Hey, does anyone know where I can go when, we're at our wits' end, having mom at home, and how can I get her into a finer facility? And then, you share resources, and other people will share too. It's not just the moderators sharing, that's for sure. And what I love about it is that we're all over the world, really. We have folks in the UK and, Australia and Canada. And, so somebody's always on no matter what time it is. So if mom or dad's not sleeping, and, you're kind of at your wits' end, you can, just say help, or, online, and somebody's always there to give you a virtual hug and things like that. So I love the Facebook aspect of it. And then the bigger part, of course, of Us Against Alzheimer's is really the advocacy for awareness and to find a cure and, all of those things. And so they have a Us Against Alzheimer's Summit each year in September. And it's always in Washington, D.C. For a very specific reason, and that reason is part of the summit includes going to Capitol Hill and lobbying members of Congress to vote for particular bills that focus on finding a cure. And this year, one of the focus was pushing a bill to give, funds for caregivers. We spend millions and millions of dollars in, unpaid caregiver time, taking care of loved ones. And so one of the bills is going to address being able to pay caregivers and things like that. And so you go to very specific, either in your home state or somewhere close to where you live, and then you go to those congressmen and you simply ask. And I had never really asked for anything, so it was really fulfilling to ask. Will you vote for these one or two things, whatever it is? And it's joyous when they say yes right away, as opposed to, well, let us read into it more. Or they ask a lot of questions and things like that. So it is, it's a powerful group, and the commitment of Tricia and George Vandenberg, who founded the organization, just the commitment of them and everybody who belongs, and all the people who attend the summit and work year-round to, find a cure for this disease. It is mind-blowing and life-changing when you actually attend the summit. So I've attended two, and I was actually very lucky this year to be on a panel where we talked about what it's like being a caregiver for your loved one, and it was just an amazing experience. So I love this group, and it really has changed my life because it certainly shows you're not alone. As you said, you love to hear other people's stories. So it's just 2 days of listening to folks, sharing, your tips that they might not know. I talk a lot about apps on your phone. People are like, oh, she's got apps, the apps that help with dementia. So whatever you can pass on to people is important. And so it's been a true gift being part of the organization, just absolutely a gift.
Yeah, they do just tremendous work. And can you highlight for people who don't know just some of the working groups that they have with Us Against Alzheimer's?
There's the Out of the Shadows, which is a dinner, probably one of the biggest fundraisers that they have, which occurs during the summit. And, they always have a keynote speaker, and this year's speaker was Laura Bush, and she was interviewed by Diane Rehm, and then all the other First Ladies appeared as well by videotape, talking about the importance of finding a cure and that kind of thing. And the dinner raised, I believe, somewhere around $800,000. I mean, it was a tremendous night. So that's one of the biggest things. And then there's the thing they call the demand action to stop Alzheimer's by 2020. And, one of the goals of President Obama was to find a cure by 2025. And this group wanted to advocate for, earlier than that. Let's cut that off, shorten that by 5 years. And so, did a lot of work into doing that. I think one of the greatest focuses for the group itself is just, promoting, all these clinical trials. And then there are several that people can get involved in. And then the biggest push and focus for this year's summit was what they call the A-list. And it's I guess like almost a network would be a great word. It promotes, trials and research, and then it really gives people a ton of resources that is called like a toolkit where folks can go and, get support. And then one of the greatest pieces of the A-list is that it also exposes you to, even if you're not participating in a trial, like I can go on and play some of these brain games, and, it appears in my phone every morning, and you can, it sort of tracks you, see, how you are now, and then, just follow you for the, upcoming years and see how, you change and that kind of thing. So just everything that is, out there about Alzheimer's, whether it's, research on the various drugs, where they are in the process. And then there are some race-based, trials as well. There's some that focus on African Americans, some on the Latino community, and so all of those groups, push individuals toward participating in the trial, since everyone culturally responds to the different trials differently. So we need as many people as possible to register. So you have this thing. The part of that A-list is called the Brain Health Registry, and so just trying to do. Cover every single area. And I think Us Against Alzheimer's really has it covered, both on the fundraising but also on, all the medical, ends as well. So having the toolkits of where to look, and also know, where are the trials that we can go to and participate in. Especially, there are a lot of people out there who want to know if they're, at risk for getting it. Some people want to know, some people don't. But it's, all of those resources are right there in within this group without having to go, outside and look at other areas. We all know that there are lots of things out there. But what I love about being part of Us Against Alzheimer's is the fact that there are so many, elements to it and so much information to go to in all one place. And that's one of the main things that I love about it.
Well, and they do a nice job. I love getting their newsletter every day with the updates with research. Yes. They also have different network groups. So they have the clergy and the women and the researchers and the Latinos and the African Americans and I love that, because just because you belong to one, doesn't leave you out of another. And I've done a lot of stuff with the Women Against Alzheimer's. I think that was one of the first things I attended, was one of the Women Against Alzheimer's, and I was just blown away by the women in the room. It was wow. Just unbelievable, the talent. And so over the last couple of years, I've attended quite a few of them. And then I got the book, The Seasons of Caring, that was put together by the Clergy Against Alzheimer's. Just, fabulous. Fabulous. It really is a great book. Great book.
It really is. And just having, I do a lot of work with support groups, both, here in the Washington, D.C. area where I live, but other places where I go as well. And, the leader's guide in particular, just has so many tips about, providing the best care and the best support for each other, especially in these groups, and just the hope that it gives, and some of the quotes or the scriptures or whatever is used is just fabulous. And everybody that participates in these kinds of things, everybody's looking for hope, just quite frankly.
Yep, exactly. Why don't we talk a little bit about, what you've learned as you've traveled around the country speaking to different caregiver groups?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the primary thing that I've learned is kind of what you mentioned right at the top of the show that you love, and that is, just hearing other people's stories. And I learned so much from that. And more than anything, I think I take away that people just want to connect. They want to cry. They want to hug. They want to listen. They want to learn. They want to share. And so I think sometimes, even if you have great friends, if you are dealing with a person that has dementia, and you might have the best friend in the world, you've been friends since high school and all this stuff, but unless they have a loved one with dementia, they might want to listen to you and everything, but they don't sometimes really get it in the way that you would like them to. Mm-hmm. So when you go around to support groups where everybody's in the same boat, everybody's parent or sibling or spouse is different, yet you can share in that same experience like we've already talked about today, the first time they don't remember your name, and then you hug and you can cry, you can do all these things because that person that you're talking to gets it. And so traveling around the country, it's not unusual for people to, as we're speaking, or I'm speaking and, and they're taking notes or they're sharing, people aren't afraid to, cry, to be very honest, to be authentic, to just share their frustration that they might not want to share at home, because you don't want to appear like you're giving up or whatever, especially I find that with people who have kids. Younger kids. You don't want to seem like you're giving up on grandma or grandpa, but it's a safe place where you can just say whatever is on your mind and be understood. And that's what I've learned the most. It's just really about the connection. I never thought that I would have, that kind of impact with people. People write on the evaluations, I felt, I've been to other groups, yet I felt here, you made it safe. I felt like I could really share anything I wanted to say. And that's what you want to hear, because why do people take the time to get in their car and come out to support group type events if they can't share? And so I want to make every connection possible with as many people as I can. I love small groups especially because then you can really hear from each of the people, too. Because I know a lot of speakers or trainers, and training is pretty much all I do. And so in the training world, huge groups, you want to be a keynote speaker in front of all these people that you can't really see in the audience. You can't see faces. Mm-hmm. And while that's cool, I guess, in a way, I think in this environment, when you're speaking with people about such a heartbreaking issue, you don't really want there to be a ton of people because you can't connect. So I love it when it's just maybe 20 people, and you can hold hands if you want while they're sharing their story or hug or do whatever. And everybody feels like they're getting individual attention, and that's what I love the most.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I can tell, you can hear your passion in your voice about this, and that's infectious, and people want to share their stories then. And, I just love when they come up and say, wow, that's exactly what I needed to hear. It's just reaffirming kind of what you hope. Right. But it just makes such a big difference. And when we allow them a safe place to talk and share, they're enriching everybody in that audience, Right. And I think sometimes they don't know that. How important their voice is to be heard and the impact that they can have. Because, what you and I do is nothing special. It's and I hope that, when I get out there and speak, I hope that I inspire others to feel comfortable to do that as well. If it's on a one-on-one or if it's in a group, it doesn't make any difference because we cannot have too many voices.
That's the biggest thing. And I sometimes when I sign the book, I put, we are all in this together. And people are like, oh, but I mean, it's so true. That whole thing of there's safety in numbers. And, there's power in numbers, too. And so, you really want people in their own community to, sort of pick up the mantle and be willing to do that as well. Because some of the, going out into the community, sometimes when I said I wanted to, one of the reasons I wrote the book was to erase some of the stigma. So I think sometimes, and I've talked to the folks in the African American Against Alzheimer's thing too, and we've all kind of experienced the same thing, where it's like, oh well, we don't really talk about that, or that's not one of our issues, and it's clearly one of your issues. If you're in the church, for example, and you're looking out into the audience, and the first 3 rows of people, you clearly have some sort of memory issues going on. And so, some audiences, congregations are much willing to, talk about it than others. But I wanted to make it okay to talk about it. Doesn't mean, I think it's the stigma sometimes is just really about mental illness or whatever. And, but if we just band together and work together and continue to share, it gives everybody hope as opposed to trying to sweep it under the rug or pray it away or whatever. So that's one of the greatest things for me is to get out there and kind of see that work.
Yeah, well, and I think, too, to get people to really feel whatever their feelings are, to give them that space that it's okay, because sometimes we think we got to be a Stepford wife and we got to be strong and we can't show it and, we have to do it all ourselves. And, we weren't put here on this earth to be alone. We were, that's my belief, that we should be living in community, and we're not truly living in community if we're not allowing others to help us. And, we all like to help other people, but we have a really hard time letting others help us. And so I think we have to kind of flip that focus that, what brings us joy brings other people joy, and a sense of purpose as well. Can you talk a little bit about kind of specific needs that your mom has and how that has maybe changed on your journey? Maybe tell us even when she got diagnosed initially and how long you've been on the journey.
Sure. Yeah, she was diagnosed in 2006, so this is year 10 for us. And, the same thing when you get diagnosed, it's just really non-specific, so, they've never really given us a specific type or anything. And for the first couple of years, she was fairly stable. We did have one really significant incident where, she was on the Aricept for a while, and she didn't want to take it in the first place. And I wasn't trying to force her to do that. But the neurologist was really pushing it, so she said she would try it. But she was one of those very few people, apparently, who had the ultimate Aricept side effect, which was it stopped her heart. And so we were at a doctor's office together, and if I hadn't been in the room with her, she would not be alive today. But we were practicing her grocery list, and I was really working on her memory back then. And so she was repeating all the things that we were going to get at the grocery store, and all of a sudden she stopped talking. And her eyes were open, her mouth was open, like, wow. And I knew right away she wasn't breathing, to do no CPR and all that. So I yelled for the doctor and all that. So they fixed that. So what that meant for us was that she couldn't, since most of the drugs, especially back then, were all the same family, that she couldn't take anything else, nor did she want to. And so we just kind of, it just progressed. So, in the beginning, she really had very few needs. In 2009, I did have to, move her to the group home that she's in now. And that was a chore. And like most other people, I waited too long to do so. The building, I saw her all the time, but the building management, never let me know that, she had gotten out a couple of times and couldn't find her way back and that kind of thing. So it was one of her neighbors that called me. And then, of course, I went there and, had somebody stay with her until we, found a good and safe place for her. So, the needs, I think, one of the questions, I'm sure you get this a lot too, is when you go around, people want to know, what are the resources we can get? And most people are looking for something, financial. And for our family, funny, we had signed, my mother made us sign a document to say that we would not force her to live with us. She believed that once a child is married, that you should let them, live their life and all that, and not infringe, be a meddling mother-in-law, as you see on TV, and so she wanted to live independently. So she believes she lives by herself. Good for her. And so, so then we just put the money toward, we had to add money to her retirement check to, have her stay in this group home. So I put her on a variety of, lists for, in the state of Maryland, where we are. We are fifth-generation Washingtonians, but when we got time to put her somewhere else, the places in Washington, D.C. itself, where she had lived for her entire life, were just out of our price range. So moving her to Maryland, where we lived, just right close to where we lived, that was the thing that we did. So, I think the greatest struggle that most of us have is finding all the resources that we need, be it financial, be it someone to come into the residence, to work with them, exercise, those kinds of things. Fortunately, my mother's physical health is unbelievable. She doesn't even have arthritis, no high blood pressure, no high cholesterol, no diabetes, nothing, just the dementia. So I'm rare in a sense in that we don't need those kinds of resources where people come in and she can still do her favorite activity she did when she lived alone, which was Tai Chi. She can still do some of those moves and things. And so, what I think most states are bogged down with is how to have, enough funds to help people in the community do that. Because I start off probably most of my presentations by saying I have two fears about this disease. One, that I'm going to get it, and then two, that my mother will outlive my money. And that's such a fear because, we were talking about, when we started this conversation, we were talking about that huge responsibility of being your parent's parent. She didn't run out of money taking care of me, so I'm like, oh my God, you can't, do that. So, you see people our age trying to figure out how much longer they're going to have to work to, care for their, mom and all that. So, yeah, it's a huge concern. So the greatest, I think, needs, we have right now is just some assistance with the cost of the rent, or because there are a lot of these state programs that provide a subsidy to what their existing, funds, their available funds are. So, those are the, the basic needs. And I think the other change for us is that we just this year, probably 7 months ago, got into the full-time with the depends, so incontinence has become a big issue. But I think one of the saving graces for all of us out there, especially those of us who still work, is that you have so many resources that can be delivered right to you. And so we get the depends and the bed liners and other pads and all things that you need, and it comes right to the door, and you can change your order every month, order more, order less, and, it's just so convenient. And so I think so many things as your needs change in this disease, it's really, again, sharing. I got the website that I ordered, it's called Disposables Delivered, and I got that website from a person at a support group event. And so, the more we share with what works for us and what does not work for us, then the better off we all are and the less stressed we are about this role that we're in. And so I think, those are, some of our current needs. And then, you're on these long waiting lists. When I was on what they call a Maryland waiver registry, I registered her for that in 2010 after I moved her to the group home. And just 2 weeks ago, she got off the waiting list and now actually on the registry list, 6 years on the waiting list.
Oh, my gosh.
And so now this registry, they come out and assess you. They look at all your needs and what you have. And then so I even asked the woman, do you think she'll be on this list, the actual list, for a couple years? She said, well, I hope not that long. Yeah, me too. So, it's, good to get a sense of where you think you are on these different, lines, long lines for services. So very interesting journey.
Well, and that's an excellent point. You can never be too prepared for stuff like this, and as scary as it is to think that that's where you might be headed, you're better off to be prepared for it than not. And,
that's correct.
And so really, really important. The other thing that I liked is you mentioned about stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's so overlooked and undervalued, the impact that stress has on us as a care partner.
Really is.
And
it's huge, and you have to. And I think I use the Legos and other things, music, as the outlets, for us. And I use a couple of the Alzheimer's, music things, and when we're together. And then I use more of the spa-related, music stations, just before bed and those kind of things to just stop my mind from racing and actually get rest. And so I think, I share all of those things too. I do instead of just talking about the book, I also do presentations on, kind of getting our joy back in a sense, and, making sure that we still have, those times when we can, get our spirit back and that kind of thing. So I do a variety of things around that topic as well. And then we get up and kind of run around the room, and we just do. People are like, oh, I haven't done this in so long. Just seeing the joy on people's faces. I have a coloring page that we use and markers on the table, and people just go crazy because if we don't all do this together, I mean, who knows where we'll end up. And, all the statistics right now are saying, 8 years is the typical time that your life is shortened, when you're a caregiver. You're like, what? 8 years? I want my 8 years back. So let's go out and have some fun and run around and that kind of stuff, if that's going to help us. And so that gets everybody's attention when they figure out that their lifespan could be reduced significantly, due to all the stress. So I try to really work on that.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Can you tell us, now you recently lost your husband, and my sympathy goes out to you and wrapping you in love and prayers, because that's a tough thing in and of itself. But how has that impacted, your mom's care? Because now you're dealing with two major losses, and how are you coping?
So it's been 3 months this week, and so just a devastating thing. You would have had to have known Tim. We were married almost 31 years, and we missed it by 6 weeks or so. And he did so much for my mom. And I have to be honest. I'm just now that we're in month 3, I'm just now realizing exactly how much he did. Like at the group home, who knew he was changing light bulbs and painting and doing some stuff? Who knew that? But he drove my mom everywhere. So one of the most just heartbreaking things I had to do was right after he died, like a couple days after the funeral, I had to buy a new car because he took my mom everywhere. He had a Ford Expedition, and if you're familiar with that vehicle, it has these running boards that come down. He had taught my mom to step and then grab for the little handle, and she could pull herself up. And then, of course, he was helping her. And then I had this little, zippy Cadillac, low to the ground, sporty car, it wasn't a two-seater, but it was really low. And my mother could not get in that car. She had forgotten how to turn and sit and turn your legs, and she had cried once. We tried to do that, and it was so frustrating. How do you tell your parent how to sit? I'm trying to demonstrate. Oh, my God. It was the most frustrating thing ever. So because, the way things go when someone dies, while you're trying to get the estate together, I didn't drive his vehicle, so I rush out and I go, thank God, to the dealership where he had bought a car, and I explained, and they all knew him, so, oh, my God, they were all devastated. So, of course, they bent over backwards to help me, so I get this car, new car, and my mom sits right in it, yay, and, I mean, just amazing. And the other thing, one of the most powerful things that he did, because I do still work, thank God, my mother's very, very healthy, but she does have appointments, like, doctor's appointments and things like everybody else, or dentists. And so he would go to the group home, get her, drive her to the appointment. I would leave work, meet them at the appointment. He would wait for the appointment to be over. Then when it was over, he would take mom back to the group home. I would go directly back to work. So instead of having to take half a day or all day, in some cases, off from work, and then you're using up your leave and all that, I only had to take off like 2 hours, hour and a half sometimes. Unbelievable. And so now I'm, just making up, all of these, things. I mean, how do you replace that? So, I lost the love of my life, my best friend ever, and you could cry and scream and throw stuff, all the frustrations about this disease, and he'd be right there holding your hand. And he just worshipped my mom. This is the most unbelievable. So one of the most beautiful things is that, I didn't have to tell her he died. She's not going to ask for him or anything. And I'm grateful for that because they just worshiped each other. Years ago, when he was in the process of retiring from the police department, my mother fell off a bus and fractured her shoulder and had to do the shoulder replacement. And at the time, he had so much sick leave on the police department, he was just using it up before he retired. He took my mom 3 days a week to rehab, and they had so much fun. They'd go to lunch and go shopping after the rehab. They just had a blast. They did that for like 6 months. My sister and I, didn't have to take time off from work. They just had a ball. And everybody said, oh, you and your mother have so much fun. She said, oh, she's my mother-in-law. And people are like, wow. They actually looked alike, too. So it was just amazing, the things that he did. And I was never, afraid if something happened to me, he would always take care of my mom. Now I'm having to put everything in writing and setting specific money, in my 401 just for her care or something. I get hit by a bus tomorrow or something. All things I had not done. So I'm scrambling around trying to do everything in addition to trying to grieve. So it's like, every moment is just different. Sometimes I just burst into tears, but I always remember that, I still have to, obviously take care of my mom, and, I do that. I'm going to be 100% honest and say one of the things I did do, though, consciously, right after Tim died, I probably didn't see my mother for, I would say, 5 or 6 days, and I go there almost every day. And I didn't go see her because I needed my mother, to comfort me because my husband died, a man that she loved and worshipped. And because I couldn't get that from her, I just couldn't go. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the longest ever stretch of time I have gone not seeing my mom. But I couldn't. And so now it's just, sitting down, writing down just all the things that I have to do that he used to do, picking up prescriptions. Before we started doing the delivery with the disposables delivery, he was at Costco getting the Depends and this and that and this and that. And so I rarely had to do any of the running and jumping. All I had to do was spend time with her. Yeah. And so, it is amazing. One of the things we've done is that this week, actually, we went, I take my mom a lot of places anyway, but now we're doing the errands as we're going to, as opposed to just having fun, like ice cream and stuff like that. So now, on the way to go walking or other exercise or getting ice cream, we go to the CVS on the way and get the prescription on the way. Sure. All the things that he used to do. So it's just a matter of making time for all those things. And so, wow, I'm just learning every day. Every day is different.
Wow, that's, and it is, because we don't understand how much other people do until you got to walk in the shoes, and then all of a sudden it's like, holy mackerel. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, you don't realize how many tasks there are, when you're working as a team, and I so get when you couldn't go see your mom, because for me, I didn't have a loss like that, but I ended up getting divorced, but I couldn't tell her because I knew that would just upset her. And there was no point because I couldn't comfort her. I couldn't rationalize. I couldn't do any of that stuff. And so, there's those moments when you're just so used to being comforted, and that just can't happen. And, how do you deal with that? Because you do have to deal with it. And then it's another loss on top of whatever it is you're dealing with. It makes you realize, oh, my gosh, I don't have that anymore. And how much you miss that. So
it really is.
Yeah, it's a massive, massive change. Is there, if you had 3 tips to tell somebody who's dealing with dementia, if it's somebody who's diagnosed or if it's a family or friend care partner, what would that be?
I think the first thing would be just kind of live in every moment, and when, and just say enjoy it. I mean, even sometimes when the dementia person is being, fussy or whatever, I mean, there's still some joy in the fact that they can still, feel. And I always try to, recognize that they still have an emotion and all that, and some of that's still in there. So I really try to focus on, one moment at a time, and I think that's one of the greatest things. And then the second tip for sure would be, make technology your friend, because there's so many things online that we can get and use, and most of it is free, that helps us on this journey. There's an app that I love, called Care Zone, and you can, if you have a team like Tim and I had, you can set appointments and do all kinds of things, and, take the person everywhere they need to go and not miss appointments. And then, though, the beauty of it is that you can share it with all your friends and family, and without having to tell the story to 12 different people or 25 different people who in the family who want to know what's going on. And so there's so many things out there. It saves you an hour of calling all these people. And so I think we need to really investigate some of the technology that is out there that'll make us, our lives on this journey, either if we have it or, we're caring for someone, so much easier. Like the music ones, for example, and I know you write it a lot and about music and the impact on Alzheimer's, and that, for example, can can bring about so much calm in the car when the person's getting, antsy or a lot of anxiety or whatever. And so, I've tried to use every piece of technology I can to help with my mom. I have 1,000 pictures on my phone from 1929 to 1939 or 1940 that really keep my mom calm when she gets excited. And so I try to use it, every kind of way. And I think the last tip of the three would be simply to reach out when you need a friend. Go to these, support groups, and if you don't want to get out, find some of these wonderful online ones as well. It doesn't have to be the Us Against Alzheimer's Facebook community. There are other ones as well that just, say to someone, I just need somebody to listen, or a friend, and people will answer you and comment in droves. You'll have more, tips and hugs, virtual hugs, than you ever thought possible. And so those are the things. You have to ask for help, or, you end up in, big trouble stress-wise. And so those are the three things that I'd say.
Okay, well, this has just been such a fun conversation, and I just love your energy and the work that you're doing. So, please keep that up. And for our listeners, check out Us Against Alzheimer's. Sign up for their newsletter. You'll get wonderful information, and so many people are looking for updates on research. This is daily. You'll get several little articles that you can go ahead and dig deeper into if you want, or if you just want the highlights, that's okay too. Along with their networks that you can tap into, and they have great educational programs as well. So, and if you're looking for a place to donate and not quite sure where to go, again, they're doing some really cool things and have really helped push, I think, Congress along in terms of increasing funds. Can you tell us, Loretta, what's the best contact information for people to reach out to you at?
They can do either my website, which is lorettaveney.com, and then they can also, email me at lwveney@aol.com as well. So those are the two, primary numbers. And then it has I think the website has the mailing address and everything too. So, and then when I speak, I usually always, give out my number, and people actually call me. So I'm willing to talk to anybody pretty much any time. So it's great.
Great. And then for the book, can they get that on your website, or is that available on Amazon? Again, the book is titled Being My Mom's Mom.
And, it's, like I said, Being My Mom's Mom, and so it's available in book and Kindle format as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for taking the time to be with us today, Loretta. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Lori.
Thank you.
And keep up all your great work as well. Appreciate it.
Okay, I will do.
Thank you.
For those of you that are new to the Alive and Social Network, you might want to check out Rachel Perrin, who's a culinary director for Kowalski's Market, along with her producer and sidekick, Adam Lee. They each week are joined by foodtastic friends and colleagues that chat about seasonal foods, favorite foods, trending topics in nutrition, and everything yummy for your tummy. They have an episode called What's for Dinner Tonight, and their podcast is only 10 to 15 minutes, but it's a great idea it's a great platform to be able to get ideas for assisting in dinner plans, because sometimes we all struggle with that. You can also go to Kowalskis.com and get a list of menu ideas, and that is KOWALSKIS.com. If you haven't listened to our recent shows, please check them out. We just had Ben Utek on, who is a Super Bowl champion, and he talked about his dealing with concussions and CTE. Just a wonderful conversation. He's in a very positive place. He's got a young family, and sports has changed his life, and he is now changing others, showing hope and leadership. We also had a show on with Deborah Schaus, Living in the Land of Dementia, which is her book. We had a discussion talking about kind of picking a dementia care community and how you do that. Our latest Dementia Chats was a fascinating conversation that you can get on our YouTube channel, or just go to alzheimersspeaks.com. It's on our front page. It's also under projects and initiatives under the Dementia Chats tab. But we talked about the need for change in terms of diagnosis, and that doctors in their clinics need to get more support information out to individuals. And our panel of experts living with the disease told their own personal stories and had some great recommendations. Our next Dementia Chats will be on dementia in pets, and then also the voting process, which is quite enlightening, how that impacts people with dementia. Our last Conscious Caring Resources was with Norms McNamara over in the UK, and we talked everything about the Purple Angel to his new book about Lewy body, to a film that's coming out. Real interesting conversation there. We also have some upcoming screenings of the Hollywood film His Neighbor Phil, which are free in Hopkins, Minnesota at the high school. On October 30th, you can see that film at 2 p.m. I'll be down in Memphis November 10th. You can get information on my homepage, and then also at St. Therese in Woodbury, Minnesota on November 16th. For blogs, I just want to point out a couple of them. George Seiler wrote a beautiful poem called Ode to Annie, which reflected his loss of his lovely wife and how it impacted him. We also have an anonymous article that talks about advocacy, and I think it's well worth reading, so check that out as well. In the meantime, keep in mind our tool that we use called Your Memory Chip. It teaches us to focus on, are people safe, happy, and pain-free when they're living with dementia? Till next time, have a blessed week.
Well, hi, I'm Lori LeBay, and I wanted to tell you about Alzheimer's Speaks, which is another great podcast. You see, my own mother lived with dementia for 30 years, and I felt lost. Did you know every 3 seconds someone in the world is being diagnosed with dementia? Odds are it's going to hit your families too. We want to help you connect to services, products, tools, research, and stories so you can be prepared. Please subscribe to Alzheimer's Speaks on your favorite podcast platform.